Hold on. We are going live. Here we go. Welcome, my friends. This is Awesemo.com, the deeper dive. Glad to be with you. You know what time it is. Time to talk some basketball. Dave Lochran, Adam Shar, 9 games. Friday, December 14th. And we're midway through December. Christmas is in 9 days, Adam. This is insane. Hold on.
Yeah, it's flying by. It still feels like I have plenty of time to go shopping and
Going
stuff,
live.
and I already know
Here
it's
we
going to end
go.
up being like Christmas Eve, and I'm just going to be sitting there like shit out of luck.
Welcome, my friends. This is Awesemo.com,
I can't
the deeper dive. Glad to think of the last time that my Christmas shopping wasn't at least 1 or 2 days prior to Christmas.
Yeah, it just sneaks up on you.
It does, but you know what? I'll get it done. Plus, you have Amazon overnight, 2-night shipping. What's it even matter anymore?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It used to be different where you're like going into a mall where there's just herds of people trampling over. Now it's no big deal. Nothing whatsoever. We're good to go. But anyway, we've got 9 games. We've got a bunch of pending injury news, and it's thrown a wrench into this slate. And the reason I say that is because it can change a lot, right? With guys like, and granted, these names I'm about to rattle off, some of them may have been at shoot around, some of them may not have been, some of them are closer to doubtful, but all of them are still questionable. You got Jaylen Brown, Mike Muscala, Jimmy Butler, Otto Porter, Alan Crabb, Dwayne Wade, Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard. Those I won't say all of them, but many of them will have a direct impact on another individual player who will then either be a very good play or not in play at all.
Yeah, there's really, really important news, and it really sucks that the Toronto game's at 10 o'clock tonight. So if you're playing DraftKings, be ready to late swap some stuff around.
That's right. All right, let's hop into it then. We've got the Charlotte Hornets and the New York Knicks. Well, here we go. Knicks are 10-point dogs here on the road, 224.5 total. Believe it or not, this game does have the third highest total on the entire slate, so that's kind of nice. And you look, the Hornets and Knicks aren't exactly teams you load up on every day, but this game does have some interesting pieces to it. Kevin Knox has played 74 minutes over his last 2 games. He started last time out. He's attempted 40 shots over that 2-game span. He's 22 rebounds. Like, he looks good right now. He's getting the run. Fizdale clearly hasn't hesitated to run him for significant minutes. And in both of those games that were, decided by, like, I think 7 points and 12 points, both of them were competitive enough to where he's getting minutes. Actually, against Charlotte, earlier Sunday, I think he played all 24 minutes in the second half, Adam. So there you have that. And then you still have no Trey Burke. I can't say I have too much interest in the backcourt there, but you have Hardaway, who played 40-plus minutes last game. And then on the other side of this, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start with the Knicks here.
Yeah, and also, you got a little over 32 minutes from Knox in that last game against Cleveland, but he picked up his third foul like 28 seconds into his second stint of the first half. He lost almost 7 minutes there. So he easily could have played 36 to 38 minutes in that game if he hadn't picked up that third foul. Really difficult for me not to like him, especially because it's not a huge sample size, but if you run some searches on him playing alongside Tim Hardaway, him playing alongside Hardaway plus Cantor, you never really see a huge drop in his usage. It might go from 24.5% down to 22%, but he's not one of these guys where you see it just, like Eric Gordon go down to 14.5% or something like that. So he's been getting his regardless of who he's out there with, which is obviously really good to see. The price tag is too cheap. Kevin Knox is, clearly my favorite play from the Knicks here. Dotson being out also helps to solidify those minutes. Hardaway, we know that he's going to play around 36 minutes. Whatever he does with them is anyone's guess. But Knox, the cheap price tag, I really like.
So do I. I actually think that Knox here and he's power forward eligible on FanDuel, not really the deepest position. Could open more up if you're getting some injuries there, but right now, as we stand, power forward on FanDuel is not all that spectacular. But it's nice having a small forward and power forward for Knox on DraftKings. He's probably the one guy that I have real interest in with New York. Aside from Knox, there's nobody that jumps off the page at me, Adam. Maybe guys that'll be sprinkled in, but Knox is the one guy that I like most for the Knicks.
Yeah, same here. I mean, if you get some Cantor in tournaments, that's fine. If you get some Hardaway, that's fine. Same for Noah Vonleh. I mean, these guys all have upside at their price. But the only guy that I think really gives you any sort of floor in addition to ceiling at his price tag from this team is Knox.
Yeah, I agree. On the other side, you've got, the obvious and popular names, Kemba Walker. You've got, Nicholas Batum is down to a dirt cheap price point, and I still have no interest in playing him. So I saw someone in chat the other day was like, yeah, Batum had his breakout game against Minnesota. It wasn't a breakout game. It was the exception to the rule. It was an anomalous game, right? It was, I mean, seriously, it was a mirage. Just because Batum had one really solid game does not mean that Batum is going to, that's going to turn the corner for him. No, since then, when he shot 17 times, he's shot 4, 6, and 2 times over his last 3 games. I have no faith that Batum is going to turn a metaphorical corner here. And look, if you want to play him at 47 or 4,800, fine, be my guest. Maybe you'll get lucky. But you could say that about pretty much a lot of guys at this same price point. That's what he's become. That's what he's devolved into at this stage of his career on this team. So I don't really need to go much further than that, unless, of course, you have something on him. And then you have the usual suspects, the Cody Zellers, the Marvin Williams, a bunch of guys that really don't do much for you in the way of fantasy production. But really, I want to start with Jeremy Lamb and get your take on him today.
Yeah, so I mean, Lamb, I had talked about him this morning on the show with EMAC, and I was kind of interested in him because he played almost 36 minutes in that last game, and we know that when he plays a lot, he can be productive. But I do think that Michael Kidd-Gilchrist being back today, or being probable for this one, does make it less appealing for Lamb, just because Kidd-Gilchrist playing has a trickle-down effect on Jeremy Lamb's minutes. I think it's more likely you get 30 to 32 minutes from Lamb here than 35, 36 plus. So I think in 30 minutes that he's a reasonable play. I still think that he's someone I'd get in some tournament lineups, and he has some upside, but just not the smash play he would be if I thought he was going to play 36 minutes again.
Yeah. I don't have any issues with Lamb. To me, he's more of a secondary, tertiary type play. Not someone that I'm going to be prioritizing. Actually, I don't have anyone from this game that I'm going to be prioritizing. Do you?
I mean, I really like.
I'm sorry. From Charlotte. Go ahead.
I really like Kemba. The price tag increased though, and it's just kind of tough to get there and prioritize him over all the other guards around him. I do think though that he has plenty of upside. He's a perfectly fine option to get to in tournaments.
Sure. Yeah, and in tournaments, as you pointed out the other day, when you do run Kemba and he has those monster games, you're getting him at lower ownership. It's harder for me to play someone like Kemba on FanDuel though, where he's more expensive than Stephen Curry.
Right.
That's tough. I think Curry's price tag there is inexplicably low. I don't care if he's coming off a really bad. It means nothing to me. Yeah, we'll get there, but I think you would agree on that it's even in tournaments it's tough.
Right, and that's why it's so difficult for me to prioritize him. On FanDuel, you look at his price; he's $100 more than Curry. He's I think $800 more than Kyrie, and then on DraftKings, he is $700 more than Dame Lillard. So it's there's at least one guard on both sites that is just substantially cheaper than him that really shouldn't be.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll even get to someone like Oladipo shortly, who I think is interesting in tournaments at his price point, assuming his minutes come back up. But if you want, I think we can move on from this game. Kevin Knox is the one player in this game overall that I think is perfectly viable in cash and tournaments.
Yep, right there with you.
All right, how about Boston and Atlanta? The Celtics are unsurprisingly double-digit favorites here, Adam. Right now, the Celtics are 12-point favorites at home, 221 total. Now, the one benefit here is that they get a massive pace-up spot. The Celtics on the season are playing at a slow pace, 100 possessions per 48, whereas Atlanta's at 107 possessions per 48. They lead the league in pace. They also allow the most points per game, have a bottom 10 defensive rating, so on and so forth. But it's definitely one of those games that it's hard to see this one staying super competitive. And when Irving is priced, at 9K or above, it makes things kind of difficult in cash, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about Kyrie on DraftKings as I do about Kemba. I love the spot, and I'm hoping I get a decent amount in tournaments, but it's tough to. There's nothing that really makes him stand out above guys like Kemba or Lillard or the other guys in that price range. On FanDuel, I think it's different. 8,700, that really takes any risk factors. If you want to factor in the blowout, him being $8,700, I think just completely gets rid of those concerns, especially when you factor in that he's going to get more possessions because of the pace that Atlanta plays at, and just how bad Atlanta is. I think it's pretty tough for Kyrie to disappoint here, especially with Horford out. You get a boost in assists and usage. So I like Kyrie, especially on FanDuel. Marcus Smart at 4,700 on DraftKings, I think, is appealing, especially if Jaylen Brown is out. And then Aaron Baines, I haven't seen anything on his minutes, but he played either 16 or 18 minutes in the game against Washington. If he can get back to like 24 minutes here against the Hawks, then I think he's a really good value play, especially on FanDuel where center pricing is tighter. Like you don't have a really cheap Yusuf Nurkic there. Jokic is up over 10K, Embiid's at 11K, and then you have Aaron Baines at $3,900. I think that he really would open up a lot for you if we get confirmation that he's going to be able to play a few more minutes.
Sure. Yeah. Al Horford confirmed out as expected. He's been out. I mean, we knew he was going to be out, but he is out of this one. I will say, though, the one thing about Kyrie Irving, even at a good price, that worries me a little bit, it is this. Brad Stevens really seems to protect his star guys in games where they have a comfortable lead, even from the beginning. And what I mean by that is, Irving in the first quarter, come out and he'll play like 10 minutes, right? But then he won't see a second rotation until like 5 minutes left in the second. And then in the third, he won't normally even play his full rotation, his full first or third quarter rotation. You'll see him play 7 minutes, 6.5 minutes, come out at that commercial break. So I do think that he runs more risk than other guys do in potential blowouts, because instead of playing 29, 30 minutes, it's possible that Irving goes and plays like 22 to 24 minutes. So that is something that worries me. But, again, if you're playing him in tournaments, you're hoping that Atlanta finds some way to keep this competitive. I just think in a blowout, I don't know if Irving would be able to get it done in those minutes, because Brad Stevens certainly does limit him quite a bit when they have healthy leads and there's no real way that the other team's coming back. That's all. But we can move on to the rest of this game. We still don't have word on Jaylen Brown. I guess we have to talk about this. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it opens the door for more minutes for Marcus Smart. I have him projected for either 32 or 34 minutes right now, assuming that Jaylen Brown is out. So I think it's a spot that bodes really well for Smart. You don't like him in games where he has to score to be effective, but against this Atlanta team that turns the ball over a ton and is really bad at rebounding, you should be able to get plenty of peripherals from Smart. And I think that the price tag's more than fair. He's 5,300 on FanDuel, only 4,700 on DraftKings. So if Jaylen Brown's out, I like the price on Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I do too. And I prefer him much more than, at least on DraftKings, than Terry Rozier. I mean, look,
Yep.
It's something we say a lot, but Rozier does not benefit really from Brown being out. Yes, he played 35 minutes. He also had 19.75 fantasy points, because Terry Rozier playing 35 minutes and Irving playing 40 minutes means that there was quite a bit of overlap there. And Rozier has a 13% usage rate and 14% assist rate with Irving on the court this year. So at least Smart's capable of giving you numbers elsewhere, whether it be steals, some rebounds. He doesn't rely on scoring to kind of bolster his fantasy total. So if I'm picking one of them, it would definitely be Marcus Smart with Jaylen Brown out. He got 39 minutes last game, 35 fantasy points. Granted, he's going to have some rough games. He isn't always going to score 18 real points, but if I'm deciding between Smart and Rozier on a night where Brown is out and Irving is in, it's going to be Smart almost every single time.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Anything else for Boston?
No. I mean, if you get to some Hayward or some Morris, then fine. Same for Jason Tatum, but I don't like them as much as the guys that we talked about.
Yeah, neither do I. Those are really the two that I have the most interest in. And I don't love anybody here, just because this is one of those games where it could get dicey early on. John Collins has been outstanding recently, at a 22% rebounding rate, 25.8% usage over his last 5 games. Double-digit rebounds now in 6 straight. The scoring, he's got 20 plus points and 11 plus rebounds in 4 straight games. And the game where he didn't do it, he had 19 points. Like, he's been excellent. Al Horford's out here. Collins' price tag has definitely come up, but he does have power forward eligibility on DraftKings now. Power forward's not really that deep today. What are you doing with somebody like Collins who draws a tough matchup? Game could be out of control early, but has really been spectacular ever since those minutes crept back up and he was fully healthy.
It's kind of tough because I'm expecting, and we don't know, but I'm expecting, at least one of Kawhi or Lowry to sit in that game, which would open up Siakam and Ibaka at the power forward spot and make it a lot deeper. But if that weren't to happen, then, you're right, the position's really thin. The problem is just that, John Collins is more expensive than Draymond Green on both sites by like $1,300 or $1,500 on FanDuel and by, I think, $600 on DraftKings. So it's tough to get there over Green, at least in cash games and tournaments, especially if you are pairing him with someone like Kyrie that would benefit from this game staying close. Then I think it's a perfectly fine spot. We saw him play 36 minutes last game. He's been productive in basically every spot that he's been in this season. So I do like John Collins. He's my favorite. Like, I like him more than Trae Young. I like him more than Bazemore. So if I'm going to someone from Atlanta, Collins and Dedmon specifically on DraftKings are the two that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I'm with you. We don't even need to take that any further. Those are the two guys. Dedmon, and you mentioned on DraftKings because he has the power forward eligibility. But I'd mentioned this in today's deep dive, which is on awesemo.com. The article that Adam and I write each day. I write Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He does Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And if you want to check it out for free, use the promo code in the bottom right corner of the screen, Deeper Dive, all one word. You go to awesemo.com to the homepage, click on Join Now, select whatever plan you want, and you can get a free week of the Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well. But just make sure to select that when you're selecting your plan. And then when you check out, you'll see the coupon code that you can put in, which is Deeper Dive. Do it, all one word, and you get a free week behind paywall, everything, all premium content. You can test it before you buy it. And you can read all of that, all the projections, Awesemo himself, his rankings, his projections, and the lineup builder, and a whole lot more. So Deeper Dive, one word. You can use that when you check out, and make sure to select the Fantasy Cruncher add-on when you pick your plan to try out. But with Atlanta, or with power forward, what I mentioned today was that things could change quickly. If Kawhi is out, if Otto Porter is out, depending on who starts for Denver, because I don't think it's a lock that Mason Plumlee is going to start again. There are a lot of different ways that this could swing and a lot of moving parts that we still don't have news on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like on FanDuel, you're probably going to just have to make a decision or run multiple crunches with different projections and go with it. On DraftKings, at least we can late swap. And I would recommend leaning towards bumping up the Toronto guys, just because you're going to want people from that game if Kawhi or Lowry sits, and you can just late swap and optimize that way. If you lock in, like a John Collins early, and then you get news in Toronto, you're kind of stuck.
Right, sure. Jaylen Brown is going to play. He is active tonight, by the way. So Jaylen Brown is playing, for those of you that may have had interest in Boston guards like Marcus Smart. So we do have some Jaylen Brown today. All right, let's move on here. Talk Cleveland and Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Bucks here on the road, 10.5-point favorites, 219.5 total, Adam. I guess we'll start with Giannis. Over his last 9 games, or over the last 3 weeks, his usage is at 28%. His assist rate has come up. It's at 30%. His rebound rate is exactly the same as it was over the first 5 weeks. His per minute production is down, though, from 156, I think, to 147. But his usage was 34.5% over the first 5 weeks. It's 28% over the last 9 games. I expected to see some regression. I didn't expect a 35% usage rate for him to sustain that throughout the year. 28%, though, is a little lower than I would hope. I think this is a blip in the radar. Teams have done a decent job of actually clogging the paint up and making him get rid of the ball more than they did earlier in the year. But he's still a matchup-proof guard that's going to get his shots, even though he doesn't have a solid three-pointer. So he's down to 11K on DraftKings. He's 12K on FanDuel, but the position is not very deep. I'm not too worried about it. I think Giannis is still the type of guy that is going to give you monster games very frequently, and he's going to get up 20 shots, sooner than later. I don't expect to see 7 field goal attempts or 12 field goal attempts very often going forward. What is your take on Giannis here against the Cavs?
I don't have any concerns about him. I mean, I think it's a perfectly fine matchup. I think that there's nothing wrong with him, and he's still one of the highest upside plays on the slate. The problem for me is just how deep the upper middle range is on this slate. Like, you just have monster upside. Even you have concerns with guys. You talked about Atlanta maybe not being able to keep it close. You kind of have the same concern with the Knicks in Charlotte, but you still have guys like Kemba, like Oladipo, who you mentioned, like Kyrie, just a whole bunch of guys in that range that give you 50 to 60 fantasy point upside. And when you have a wide range of players like that, it makes it so there's a really good chance that you really need like that 70+ point game from Giannis in order to keep up with that portion of the field. And then that's without even, factoring in that you have Steph and Durant and Embiid and all of those other guys in the price range that are capable of outscoring Giannis. So it's a spot where I'm not that high on him. Like, I think he has a monster ceiling. I'm just not prioritizing him over other expensive options.
Yeah, look, I have no issues with that. I just think that small forward could get even more thinned out if number one, if Plumlee starts over Lyles. There's one guy on DraftKings at least that isn't on the board. Let me ask you this while we're having the conversation: like, who at small forward do you really like tonight on DraftKings?
Josh Richardson, Paul George, Lyles, because I'm pretty confident he starts.
Me too, but we don't have the news yet, so I'm saying without any news right now.
Yeah.
So those guys.
Yeah, I mean Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I'm not super high. I mean, Buddy Hield's also at 5,800, which is pretty cheap. I talked about Josh Richardson, begrudgingly talked about him today. Well, I guess we'll wait till we get to that game. But that's one of those where you kind of just choke it. Go ahead.
I was just Kevin Knox, Fork and Korkmaz if Butler's out.
Right. Yeah.
Just Middleton.
Yeah, I'm not big on Middleton, but Kevin Knox, obviously, and of course Korkmaz. But again, that's another piece of news that we'll have to wait on, which makes this slate definitely more difficult to break down right now. I like Giannis a little bit more than you do, mostly just because I think you mentioned all of those other guys in that price range, and I totally agree. I really like Westbrook. I really like Embiid if Butler's out. Curry's another guy, but now you're getting Giannis at 11K on DraftKings, where he's only 100 or 200 more than Westbrook, and he's very closely priced to all of these guys. So it's not really like you're paying up for him like you would have in a bunch of other slates earlier this month. So I think that makes a difference for me. But am I prioritizing him? No. I still have him third among the top tier guys, but I don't hate him at all at that price point at 11K flat. You mentioned Middleton. I don't really have much interest in him, so I'll let you talk about the rest of this Milwaukee team, because for me it was really only Giannis that I had any interest in.
I love Middleton on DraftKings. I don't think anyone's going to go there, especially because he's basically the same price point as Klay Thompson, who we'll talk about. I think is a very good play. But Middleton's been really bad lately, but it has nothing to do with his minutes or his opportunities. Even over the last month, he has a 24.7% usage rate, 15.5% assist percentage, 11.5% rebounding percentage, playing around 34 minutes in competitive games. And his price tag's just plummeted because he's shooting really, really poorly right now. I love him in tournaments here. I just think he's basically hit rock bottom as far as price tags go. And he's really the most underpriced guy for me on this Milwaukee team. So really, really, really like Chris Middleton in DraftKings tournaments.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Really likes Chris Middleton in tournaments. Anybody else for Milwaukee, though?
Nope.
All right. What about Larry Nance? Yeah. There it is again. 3 points, 39 fantasy points. It gets tougher to rely on that when the price tag rises. He's 7K on FanDuel now, 62 on DraftKings. I don't think that's out of the question, but you're talking about someone that you're going to need the rebounds, you're going to need the blocks, the steals, the assists in order to get where you need to go, because it's just such ridiculously low shot volume. But here you have Larry Nance again, 33 minutes. Channing Frye was a surprise starter last game, but Larry Nance still saw 30 minutes in that one, while Channing Frye played 14. What do you make of someone like Nance here tonight against Milwaukee?
I still have some interest in him, but not as much as I did last time. Just because the price tags come up enough to where it's a lot more difficult for him to put up a score that really kills you if you don't have him, and it's a little bit easier for him to disappoint at this price tag. You mentioned the shot volume, and that's obviously a concern. But like we had talked about before, when he plays without Tristan Thompson, the assist percentage does go up, the rebounding percentage goes up. The minutes in general are much more productive. He averages about 1.1 DraftKings points per minute when Thompson's not on the floor, compared to about 0.85 alongside Thompson. So, the production does go up, even though the usage doesn't really change. But, with the price tag increasing, with it being a 9-game slate here, I have him projected for right around 34.5 DraftKings points. I think he's a perfectly fine option. It's just that he's not going to be, jamming into almost every lineup I make like he was last slate.
Another question too is, will we see Nance in the starting lineup here with Giannis on the other end of this game? I don't know what the defensive assignments are going to look like to start, but Channing Frye is not exactly somebody you rely upon. Cedi Osman, not so much either. So it'll be interesting to see what Drew does here with this starting lineup against Milwaukee and against Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, I mean, whichever center gets switched on to Giannis is going to have problems.
Right. But if it's Larry Nance or if it's Channing Frye, it's going to be quite a long night. We'll see though. Any other interest with Cleveland? You've got a bunch of these names that are really just hard to get excited about, whether it be Alec Burks or Colin Sexton, or really Cedi Osman, who played 32 minutes the other day and had 13 fantasy points. He's just been dreadful. And I don't really know if there's anybody here anymore not named Larry Nance that you can have any reliability with.
Yeah, this team very quickly went from like a 7 or 8 or an 8-man rotation to like a 12-man rotation with the trade and with guys getting healthy. And so, I mean, I think if you're playing 150 lineups, you should probably be ending up with some Sexton, Burks, and Clarkson, just because they're cheap and they all do have upside at their price tags. But as far as, guys that you're prioritizing or feel good about, there's just too many bodies here, too many different ways this game can go. You had Jalen Jones pick up like 6 minutes last game, and then you had Jaron Blossom game pick up another like 10 in the second half. So it's not even like those guys are necessarily out of the rotation. You had Ante Zizic not play at all. So even if Channing Frye is out of the rotation, that's another body they could put in. It pretty quickly turned into a mess, and that's without even getting into the potential that David Nwaba plays more minutes for defensive reasons here.
Right. I don't really have any interest outside of Nance. And even with Nance, I don't have an issue with him, but he's not a top play of mine. I feel like when it comes to Cleveland, as you mentioned, you add to a rotation that the only reason I had any interest in them before was because the rotation was so thin.
Right. It's a bunch of guys that you can't really rely on a per-minute basis to produce, with the exception of like Clarkson and to an extent Nance. But now you have them with questionable minutes, and they're already questionable basketball players, so it's kind of tough.
Yep. Yeah, I'm getting an echo here. You got headphones in, or is that me echoing through you?
I don't hear one. I don't know.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to find out. Now it's gone. All right. Well, that's good. We'll tackle it when it comes back up again. Let's talk about Brooklyn and Washington. This is a far more appealing game for a couple of reasons. By the way, it looks so. If this is correct, Jaylen Brown is okay. So Gordon Hayward's playing. By the way, it says Jaylen Brown's playing, but we're getting that Marcus Smart is starting tonight. Baines obviously is starting as well. So I don't know what to make of that. I mean, I think you're still going to see the minutes come down quite a bit from last time, but it's right now we're getting that Marcus Smart is still starting over Jaylen Brown. So
he'd been starting.
What'd you say?
He had been starting like before Brown.
Oh, how many games was he starting prior to?
I think like 3 or 4, maybe.
Maybe I just forgot. All right. It was what was it? So the starting lineup was Irving, Smart, Tatum, Morris, and Baines, or Horford. Yeah. Sorry, yep. Horford. Yeah. Okay. Brooklyn and Washington. Let's talk about this one and start with just the obvious caveats here. If we have no Otto Porter or no Allen Crabbe, there's a chance that you might see some Rodions Kurucs, and he is actually someone that last game against the 76ers played not what 19 minutes here, put up over a fantasy point per minute. But I'm not suggesting you play this guy. What I'm saying is that I think if Alan Crabb is out, he probably sees some more minutes. Dinwiddie probably falls into some more minutes. I like Spencer Dinwiddie a lot today. Actually, he's a guy that kind of continuously goes overlooked because he comes off the bench, but he plays 30 or more minutes almost every night when it's a close game. He's been a huge spark off the bench. The usage, the assist rate, the per minute production, everything's been there. It's just he's not a starter. So guys like him, guys like D'Angelo Russell, Jared Allen against Washington. There are several players from this team, regardless of Alan Crabb's status, that I have quite a bit of interest in tonight.
Same here. Washington plays fast. Washington doesn't play defense. Washington doesn't rebound. Washington doesn't do anything well. And EMAC mentioned it this morning, and he was absolutely right. Don't take anything away from the last time these two teams played. That was a game where Washington was on a back-to-back, and Brooklyn was on a road back-to-back, coming off a double overtime game against, I think it was Memphis. It was just a really ugly, sloppy, slow-paced game that I don't expect to have any bearing on how this game plays out here. So don't look into that one. But absolutely love D'Angelo Russell here. I love that he's coming off of a couple of bad games. He only played, I think it was 22 minutes last game, but we've seen the minutes be there for him when he's playing well. And that's something that I love in tournaments. If my guy's playing poorly, then I still rather him be on the floor, but I'm probably not winning a tournament with him anyway. But when he plays well, he can still get his 32 to 34 minutes. It's a great matchup for him. The price has come down a bit. I like him a lot. I'm with you on Dinwiddie. I think that the price tag is reasonable, but it's still a little bit cheaper than his ceiling. He's playing around 30 minutes. He's also getting backup point guard minutes now. We have Shabazz Napier out of the rotation and Dinwiddie playing more minutes without Russell on the floor. So that's been good as well. And then Jared Allen, it's not as deep a center position today as on some slates. And this is a matchup for Allen just against one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. I think that he could go out and put up a pretty nice line in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, me too. All three of those guys to me are very solid options. And all of them for similar reasons. Well, I mean, with Jared Allen, it's because Washington cannot rebound for shit. And they've just been crushed by opposing bigs this year. Look, he's not the most formidable offensive player, but if Jared Allen comes out here and plays 28, 30 minutes, he's 5,600 on DraftKings. He's 5,900 on FanDuel. And while center is generally one of the deepest positions on the slate, I don't think it's as deep tonight. I don't. Obviously, it'll depend on what happens with the starting lineup for Denver. And you still have guys like Embiid, barring the Butler news. You still have Jokic with Millsap off. Somebody like Nurkic on DraftKings is cheap, but there isn't really a plethora of good options here where you have on most nights. So Jared Allen to me is what I think one of the better point per dollar plays on the slate, definitely at the position. Him, Dinwiddie, as you pointed out, the price is pretty reasonable, but it's also not restrictive either. It's not like he can't put up 40 plus fantasy points here. We've seen him do it quite often. He did it last time out. He was the reason they won that game. They've now won 4 straight. So Dinwiddie, Russell, Jared Allen, to me, all three of them are very much in play. And I guess for me, I don't know. Not huge on playing Dinwiddie and Russell in the same lineup. Not because they can't both have decent games, but because they are still going to play some minutes alongside each other. They are still competing for some of the same shots and assists. But 2 of these 3 in the same lineup, I'm perfectly fine with. Do you have any limitations here when it comes to all 3 of these guys?
No, I mean, I don't love Russell and Dinwiddie next to each other, but I don't hate it. Like if I'm playing 150 lineups, it's probably not a rule that I set that I can't have both of them. If I'm, single entering and hand making a team, then I probably wouldn't play them together unless it's some sort of a game stack here. So I agree with you on that. I don't think it's a spot where it's a huge deal if you have them together. It's just probably not the perfect situation.
Aaron Baines will be limited to 12 to 15 minutes tonight, by the way.
That's less than he played last game.
I'm just telling you what they said. I'm just telling you what the reports are. I ain't making nothing up here. But
so he's playing 32?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Who knows? Look, I don't know what to tell you. Aaron Baines played, 16 minutes last game? So, I don't know. Maybe they want to keep him to the same playing time here. We'll see. He played 16 minutes even. last game. So I don't know. What are you going to do? Let's talk about the Washington Wizards, unless there's someone else on Brooklyn you think we should get to.
There is not.
No. Okay. Washington, they are, well, we don't know yet. We don't have the Otto Porter news. So I guess we'll just continue to wait on that. Do we have shoot around news on Porter?
Nope.
Because I didn't see anything.
Not that I've seen.
I didn't see it either. Well, we have Otto Porter questionable. Dwight Howard's been out, gonna be out, which means that they will continue to rebound like shit. Wall is healthy for the time being. So really right now, it just comes down to the Otto Porter news. Let's touch on that first and expand out to the rest of the team. Go ahead.
So if Otto Porter plays, it makes it much less appealing, obviously, for guys like Kelly Oubre and Jeff Green. Porter himself would be a decent but not great play, I think. If Porter's out, then I think it becomes more interesting because you probably get Jeff Green in the starting lineup again. And you and I have talked a lot about his usage rate comes down quite a bit when he's playing more minutes alongside Wall and Beal, but it does push him into like 30 to 32 minutes most likely, and that would make him a very reasonable value option. Kelly Oubre would be a nice value option off the bench, probably at lower ownership than Green, anywhere that they're similarly priced at least, because you do get a little bit more usage for him. And then Markieff Morris, I don't think is affected at all by Otto Porter. All of his minutes are coming at center right now. He's really been frustrating the roster lately just because he's in foul trouble night in and night out. But the price tag just keeps going down. The ownership keeps going down. He's $5,100 here with power forward eligibility, playing 30 to 32 minutes of center against the Nets as long as he doesn't foul people. So I'll be going right back to Markieff Morris and then bitching about it in chat probably.
Probably. He's another one of the guys like at power forward where, yeah, you've got him there, but he's still Markieff Morris. Hell, we'll talk Jaren Jackson later, but all of these guys are very similar in that, yeah, they're probably too cheap given their ceiling, but their floors are also pretty distasteful as well. So that's what we've got. That's what we have for this slate. At power forward, you're going to see a whole lot of that. But let's branch out a little bit to the rest of this team. I'll tell you right now, look, if Porter's out, Oubre is a guy who, Porter played 10 minutes or 7 minutes before getting injured against Indy and then sat out the following game. Oubre in those two games played 37 and 38 minutes respectively. So I'd expect Oubre to see quite a bit of run here. And, even in those games against Indy and against Boston, Kelly Oubre, and by the way, John Wall played only one of those games, but Kelly Oubre did get a good amount of shots up. Now, I'm not saying I expect, him to get 14, 15 shots up again in each of these games, but at his price point, I don't think he would be a terrible play. Just certainly not somebody I'm prioritizing, but 55 on FanDuel is not crazy at a position that doesn't really offer all that much, but we're still waiting on Otto Porter. Anyway, what do you make of Wall and Beal and everybody else we've yet to talk about in this backcourt?
I'm not paying all the way up for John Wall. 9,500 on DraftKings is more expensive than Kyrie. It's more expensive than Kemba. It's way more expensive than Dame Lillard. I'm not doing it. And then on FanDuel, he's still more expensive than Steph Curry. He's more expensive than the guys I just named. So I can't bring myself to do it. I know he's coming off of a huge game. I just don't think that he's really that close to as good of a play as those guys. Bradley Beal's interesting, though. Price tag is very reasonable. He's sitting at only 7,900 on DraftKings. He didn't play as many minutes in the last game, only played 38 minutes against Boston, including overtime, but he also was in foul trouble in that game. Otherwise, I see no reason why he wouldn't have done his normal thing and played like 40 to 42 minutes. So I still have him at 40 minutes here. Projects, as over a point per minute player and has plenty of upside. So Markieff Morris and Bradley Beal are my two favorite plays from Washington.
Okay. For me, yeah, Morris, and that's pretty much it. I understand the Bradley Beal love here. I just don't know how I get to him. Now, his price is pretty reasonable. So if I saw Bradley Beal in some lineups, I wouldn't have any issue with that. But there's a reason, and we'll get to that in just a moment, actually, right now, that Bradley Beal wasn't as high on my radar. And that's Philly and Indiana. We've got the Sixers at home hosting the Pacers, 3.5 point spread. The Sixers are favorites here at home. I don't know what the deal with Butler is yet. We have yet to find out. You got a 219 total. As of now, from everything that we have seen, he is still questionable, basically a game time decision here. And unless you've seen something I haven't, that is the same for Mike Muscala.
Yep, I've seen game time decision for both.
All right. So now that we're on the same page, I'll start. You know what? I'm going to start with the Pacers because maybe we'll talk about them and then we'll get this news. Sometimes we get lucky, when we go to Philly. I'll tell you what, man. Victor Oladipo, I don't hear anyone talking about him. He played 29 minutes last game and they won easily, like very, very easily over Milwaukee. Now, did he lose minutes in a blowout? Well, not really, because if you look at his rotation, Victor Oladipo actually closed that game out. He played the final, I think, 9 minutes or 8 minutes of that game. And then his first half rotation, he played 7 minutes in the first quarter and then about 7 in the second. So he played 14 minutes. And then his second half rotation was pretty much the same. So I expect Oladipo to basically have no limitations today. He said he felt perfectly fine. There may be, maybe, oh yeah, he'll be limited to 32 minutes. I don't buy it. If this game's close, this is a spot where I think Oladipo gets just as much run as he needs. It's a Sixers team that's been trashed by ball dominant shoot first guards like Oladipo. He actually dropped 36 points and 66 fantasy points on him earlier this season. I think if they have any chance of winning this game, it will come down to Oladipo taking a ton of shots. And he is at a price point that, look, before he got injured, Oladipo was 9,600, right? He was well up above 9K. Now he's 8,400 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's 8,600. I'm going to have some Oladipo tonight, and I think that this is one of these spots where he probably doesn't get a whole lot of love. And for that reason, because he has such a high ceiling, because he is someone that can jack up 25 plus shots in a competitive game, I like him. Now, just to preface, I like him more if Butler is out. But even if Butler's in, it's not exactly like Butler's put the clamps on opposing shooting guards or opposing point guards or opposing small forwards, whoever he's guarding. That has not been the case. So I expect Oladipo to have no ownership, really. And for that reason, I like him. I think his minutes are perfectly stable here. Or what are you doing, if anything, with the Pacers?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think that the price is the really important thing on Oladipo because we really have no idea what they're going to do with his minutes. I'm with you. I would be inclined to think that he probably at least gets to like that 34-minute mark after playing almost 30 minutes in that first game back. We don't know, but the price tag makes it so there's just more of an edge in playing Oladipo and hoping that happens and that you get, 55 fantasy points or something at 8,400 than by saying, I don't really know if he's going to get those 4 extra minutes and then just watching him go off and you don't win a tournament because you don't have any. So I think there's just more risk really in not having Oladipo in tournament lineups than in playing him. There's plenty of other spots to go to in cash games if you want.
Of course.
But I just think that there's way more upside in taking a chance on him in tournaments. So I'm right there with you. I'm really the only guy that I like from the Indiana side because, I know Miles Turner got up a ton of shots in that last game, even with Oladipo back, but one game is not enough for me to override everything that has happened when Oladipo has been on the floor previously. And you have Turner's price jacked up from the time that Oladipo was out. Everyone else is basically priced for Oladipo to be out as well. So it's basically Oladipo or nothing for me from the Indiana side.
Me too. There was nobody else really here. And plus, a lot of these players, their price points are still basically boosted from Oladipo being out.
That's a really good point.
So it's not like you're getting any type of, you're getting real no legitimate value on them. I think Darren Collison's still got 5,900. Miles Turner's still 7,400. And maybe the only one would be Sabonis, and even he is coming back down to earth a little bit. So let's skip to the other side here and talk about the Sixers. I'll let you pretty much. Chris Middleton is out tonight.
I like Chris Middleton a lot less now.
Malcolm Brogdon is out tonight. I like Giannis a little bit more. You like Giannis a little bit more?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Maybe some Bledsoe?
Yeah, I mean, Bledsoe's a really good play.
Well, this changes things. Let's go back to Milwaukee real quick, where Chris Middleton and Malcolm Brogdon are listed as out. No, you know what? We'll finish this game, and then we will circle back before we go to the next one because I don't want to get all over the place here. Let's finish out Philly, and then we'll go back to Milwaukee. We still don't have any information on Butler, although we did have a bomb just dropped on us with Middleton and Brogdon both out. Middleton with a finger, Malcolm Brogdon with a hamstring. Well, there it is. But first, let's talk about Philly. And let's just do it like this. Make it easier for the viewers. Let's say Butler's out. Go ahead.
If Butler's out, I still really like Embiid. I have him projected for over 60 fantasy points, slightly over 60 fantasy points again tonight. Just has been, too productive without Butler or Covington or Saric on the floor this season. 34% usage, over a 20% assist and rebounding percentage, averaging a little over 1.5 fantasy points per minute with the potential to play 36 to 38 minutes here. Really just too good for me to pass up. If Butler's in, then that changes just because he's priced up. But you would also obviously get Korkmaz as a clear, value option. Only 3,800 on DraftKings. Played 34 minutes last game. Even if I project him at 30 minutes here, then he still comes in as a pretty good value option. You get a boost for JJ Redick. You get a little bit of a boost for Ben Simmons as well. The only thing not to like is that this is still a substantial pace down game for Philly against what is actually a very good Indiana defense. So it's not as great a spot as it was against Brooklyn, but I think that if Butler's out, these guys are still underpriced for that scenario.
They are. An interesting thing about Korkmaz too. Remember, we were talking about how you're gonna have to hope that Simmons gets him some open 3-point looks and that he knocks him down because the guy takes 55% of his shots from three. Well, Korkmaz in that last game actually created his own shot in a few cases, took some drives to the rim, and of the 14 attempts he took, only 3 were from 3-point range. He took 5 shots around the basket. 9 of his field goal attempts came in the paint. So that's good to see. It's good to see, if you're not getting those wide open 3-point looks or if you're not hitting them, that you can still find ways to produce elsewhere. And Korkmaz at 3,800. You just said you're talking about these prices still being too cheap. Yeah, he was 3,200 last game, but 3,800 if Butler is unable to play, that's still too cheap on a guy that played 35 minutes last game.
Yeah, no question.
Where do you put Embiid in terms of priority, in terms of preference, assuming Butler's out? Because now we have this huge Milwaukee news. You still have Russell Westbrook, who's reasonably priced in a game that should be real competitive and should see enough scoring. Where do you put somebody like Embiid here if Butler doesn't play?
I have Embiid right now projected as the highest scorer on the slate, half a point ahead of Giannis. So it's like Embiid, Giannis, and then a drop off to Westbrook, Jokic.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I was hoping we'd get that news. Now, if Butler does play. Oh, and by the way, let me just say, JJ Redick last game shot 5 for 15, 1 for 7 from 3. It was a terrible shooting performance. And actually, he is now 5 or 24 from 3 over his last 3 games. So he's somebody else that has struggled to shoot recently, but he's still getting the shots up. So I don't think at this price he's a terrible play either. It's just you have to hope, kind of like you were talking about Middleton, obviously with less peripherals, but also a cheaper price point, that assuming the shooting gets back on track, the volume is still going to be there. Anybody else for Philly without Butler? If not, and honestly, the Muscala news throws a wrench into the works too. Let's just assume that both of them are playing, and now give me another breakdown if they play, so we don't really have to circle back when we get this news.
If Muscala plays, it just kind of takes minutes away from those fringe guys. You become I become less confident in Korkmaz's minutes because I would expect Muscala to pick up minutes at the 5 and at the 4, which means that you just kind of have a trickle-down effect to where you have Landry Shamet and Simmons and all these guys playing and Redick playing basically the 1 through 3. And so potentially you could get 28 minutes or 26 minutes from Korkmaz instead of 34. So I wouldn't like him quite as much. I would take minutes away from McConnell and from Shamet as well. It wouldn't change a ton. Korkmaz would still be the one that I'm the most interested in. I would just be a little bit less interested.
Agreed. All right. Do you want to talk anything else here before we go back to Milwaukee?
No, we can go back to Milwaukee.
All right. You sound excited to go back to this Bucks game. All
Yeah,
right.
thrilled.
Yeah. All right. No Middleton, no Brogdon. So I don't know if you did it while I was talking. If not, I can run the numbers just to see what it looks like with these guys when these other players are off the court. Um, but with Giannis Antetokounmpo, with Middleton and Brogdon sidelined this season, he has played. Pulling it up right now. He has played only 82 minutes with both of them off the court, has a 33.3% usage rate, 26% assist rate, rebounding rate stays solid, and 1.64 fantasy points per minute, which is above his season average by a pretty significant amount. I don't. Did you run Bledsoe with these guys off?
Yeah, I ran it. So I ran Bledsoe and Giannis next to each other without Middleton.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I didn't worry about Brogdon just because he doesn't really change a whole lot.
Sure, go ahead.
But yeah, so 108 minutes in that situation, 26.9% usage for Bledsoe, 1.14 DraftKings points per minute, 32.3% for Giannis, 1.68 DraftKings points per minute.
Pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
What was Bledsoe's per minute production?
1.14.
Okay, so not great, but also not terrible. By the way, though, if you put Giannis, or I'm sorry, if you take Brogdon off the court, I would guess it doesn't change much for Giannis, but it actually does change a little bit for Eric Bledsoe, or at least it has in a relatively small sample. Bledsoe's per minute production goes up to 1.24, his usage at 26%, and his assist rate at 28%.
Yeah. So the rates are about the same. It's just a probably small sample size issue.
It probably is. Yes, the efficiency goes up a little bit there, but it is a really good spot for both of them. And the thing with Bledsoe, just to kind of point this out, I don't know how I don't know how much you prioritize him at his price point. I'll be honest with you. I hadn't even really considered him at all in this game before this. I don't think you had either. And it's because his price is at that 76 and 77 on FanDuel. What are you doing with Bledsoe now? Being that you're not getting him at like 6,500, you're not getting him at a huge discount, but you are getting him with two pretty notable, or at least one pretty notable player off the court for this entire game.
I have him coming in as a really good play now. I mean, I gave him a couple more minutes. Like I have him at 34 minutes. I think he could actually probably play like more than that. But I have him at 34 minutes and got him up to like 43 and a half DraftKings points. So he went from being someone that, I had behind Middleton, I had behind Giannis, to being a really good play at the point guard position for me.
Yeah. This game's offline on Pinnacle right now. I'll let you know when it comes back on to see what we get in terms of a line change. But what about Giannis? I already liked him a lot. Now I just like him more. Do you like Giannis more here?
I like him more. I gave him a little bit more playing time. Just for one, I think it's more likely this game stays close. But for two, it's just harder for them to, if it's like a competitive game, but one that they don't need him on the floor, it's harder for them to just keep him at, like 34 to 36 minutes. So I went ahead and bumped him up to a full 38. And, I got a nice like 3 or 4 DraftKings points bump for Giannis as well.
All right. Now let's talk about the guys that are going to fill in, because you have the old trusty Sterling Brown, who has actually been playing a lot of minutes recently. And then you have Pat Connaughton, who played 5 minutes last game. He was, and actually, I don't think he played last game. So I know he had that knee injury. DiVincenzo didn't play either. So I'll be honest, man, this is a tough one to break down in terms of replacement players here.
Yeah, didn't Middleton just miss a game and like Ilyasova started for him?
Yeah, he did, but that was also excuse me. That was also let's see. I believe it was on what day
it was against Cleveland.
Was it against Cleveland?
Maybe Giannis missed.
Yeah, Giannis missed that game. But okay. Middleton missed I swear Middleton missed a recent game as well. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me just check this real quick, because I'm almost certain he did. Yes, Middleton missed the game on the 5th against Detroit. But I'm pretty sure that was when Pat Connaughton was still playing a decent amount of run. He played 19 minutes in that game. DiVincenzo played 17 minutes in that game, and Sterling Brown played 19 minutes. So they all really like chopped everything up. But now Sterling Brown's playing a lot more minutes.
Ilyasova was also out that game.
Well, yeah. So it makes it really tough to
right.
gauge much at all. And now they have, for whatever this is worth, George Hill is in the mix, and he's been getting at least some minutes here. I'm having a tough time really saying. I can't confidently say what I project it to look like tonight. I'll just be honest with you. I can't.
Yeah, no, same boat here. And I think a lot of it probably has to do with who's playing well. Especially out of those wings with Connaughton and possibly DiVincenzo and Hill and Brown. So I hopefully we get a lineup soon and find out who's actually joining the starting lineup. That'll help, prioritize minutes there, because there's just so many ways that it can go here, especially against the Cleveland team that has a bunch of guys that play multiple positions too. Like, it's really, really tough to project confidently. I would say that I think George Hill is probably my favorite out of like the scrubs, just because he's really, really cheap, and we know that he can produce reasonably well when he gets minutes.
And none of them are great permanent producers. So what I would say here is that, if you're going to put confidence in anyone, Giannis first and Bledsoe. Let's move on here. Before we do, it's 24 days of giveaway ongoing here at awesemo.com. Our gift from us to you, our lovely and loyal viewers. So basically, here's what's going on. We already gave away all our NFL rest of season packages for this week. The week's coming to an end. One random winner every day will win a package of their choosing. Any sport, you got it. Or you can win or select a piece of merchandise from our store at what is it? I forgot the name. It is here's the store. It is shop.awesemo.com, and there's actually some really cool merch there, so I'd check it out even if you don't win. All you have to do is like the video and comment below after the video ends. Leave a comment, whatever you would please. Doesn't matter, as long as you comment after the video ends. Comment down below. You can do this with any video throughout the day. If you comment on 5 of our live streams, 5 of the videos, and like them, you're going to be entered 5 times each day. And all of those will count as well for the December 24th Christmas Eve drawing, where we give away a premium all access annual pass value of $700 to one lucky listener, one lucky viewer. Full calendar year, everything behind paywall. You got it. We're going to do that drawing on the 24th, Christmas Eve. So all you got to do, like the video, comment after it ends. Anything you'd like, as long as you leave a comment below, for your chance to win in the 24 days. A giveaway, our present from us at Awesemo to you. Oh, and one more thing, just to get it out of the way here, and then we'll close out. If you're looking for a tournament with a huge prize pool and $250,000 in overlay, head over to Yahoo, because they've got it for week 15. They're offering a $1 million total prize pool with $250,000 in guaranteed overlay and only 10 entries max. So none of that 150 entries that you're competing against. You have a legitimate shot to win good money here, and all you have to do is sign up at sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy, sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy, and use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. And you'll get $30 back on any deposit of $30 or more, which is pretty cool as well. Sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy, and use the promo code AWESEMO, and you got a shot to obviously be entered into a pretty awesome contest with a $250,000 guaranteed overlay and 10 entries max. All right, Adam, we got slowed up here with all of that news, so we're going to have to burn through some of these, but we still have got plenty of time left. Let's talk Memphis and Miami. Really low total in this game, 196. Memphis 4-point favorites here. Here we go. Mike Muscala will play. Jimmy Butler is out. Well, we already said how we think that affects him. Affects Korkmaz, but I still expect him to get. He is starting. I'm still giving Korkmaz around. How many minutes are you going to give Korkmaz? I give him 28, 30.
Yeah, I was thinking same thing.
Same thing. Jonah Bolden played no minutes in that game. I'm trying to see how we would expect these minutes to break down. I'd still give him around 28, 30. And then Wilson Chandler in that last game played 32. Maybe take a couple off of him as well to give to Muscala. Memphis and Miami. Memphis 4-point favorites here. Hassan Whiteside's back. Goran Dragic is out. Dwayne Wade is questionable. Start with Miami and break this down because I think it's actually a little bit more of an interesting side due to the injuries.
Yeah, I don't really find it that interesting other than Josh Richardson on DraftKings at 5,600. I think the price tag is just too low for him. He should play about, and I mean, he's too cheap on FanDuel as well, but 5,600 on DraftKings just kind of jumps out because he should play around 36 minutes here. You have no Goran Dragic. You have Dwayne Wade, who's questionable as well, at least unless that news broke during the show. So potentially even more ball handling. Yeah, so potentially even more ball handling responsibilities and usage opportunities for Josh Richardson. But regardless, it's a really slow-paced Memphis team. It's a very good Memphis defense. But even factoring that in, I think it's just too cheap of a spot for a guy that's going to play 36 minutes and average probably between 0.85 and 0.9 fantasy points per minute. Justice Winslow is reasonable. Like, I think that he gets around 30, handles the ball a lot. The problem is just that his price tag's rising where Josh Richardson's is plummeting. So it's tough to get there. And then, Tyler Johnson, I just think is a little unnecessary on this slate. There's certainly a path to him having a good game, but it's not a spot that I really feel the need to go to.
The only reason I say it's interesting is because if Dragic was playing, I'd have zero interest in anyone on this Miami team.
I'd still
Richard. I wouldn't personally, but because I hate the matchup. I hate that they play at the slowest pace. I hate that they have a top 4 defense. I hate that Richardson hasn't even looked good recently, but his price is cheap. He's going to get the minutes. This is exactly what I put in today's article. And Miami's primary ball handler in Dragic is out. So 25% usage with Dragic off the court this season. And while he's not shooting well, he's still going to get the opportunities. That's all I have on this one. And Richardson is more of a necessary evil than he is a guy that you feel good about putting into your lineup, at least in my opinion. Okay. Anything for Memphis?
Nope, not as a priority. 4,200 Kyle Anderson, I think, is a little cheap on DraftKings. It's certainly nothing you have to get to, though. I can't go to Jaren Jackson just because with Joakim Noah being there, he's lost those center minutes. His minutes are all over the place with JaMychal Green being back as well. So I'll probably end up with a little bit of Kyle Anderson, maybe a little bit of Mike Conley, but that's about it.
All right. Jackson did play 31 minutes last game, but those minutes have absolutely been all over the place, even in games where he wasn't in foul trouble. So he's a huge risk, no question. Let's move on because that game's pretty disgusting. Denver and Oklahoma City. This one's not as disgusting. Denver plays at a slow pace this year. The Thunder don't. Actually, the Thunder on the season are playing at a top 6 pace. They also have the number 1 ranked defense in it from a 100 possession standpoint. They are allowing only 101.9 points per 100 possessions. That's very good. However, you've got no Paul Millsap. Jokic's numbers with Millsap off the floor have been very, very solid. And then Plumlee started last game, but I think that was a matchup-based instance, and also potentially the fact that Mike Malone was really, really pissed about how awful they were in that road loss to Atlanta and might have wanted to shake things up a bit. But as you pointed out earlier in the show, I agree with you 100%, stated the same thing earlier today. I would be surprised if Trey Lyles doesn't start tonight alongside Jokic.
Yeah, same here. I mean, matchup reasons, it makes more sense to have Lyles out there. And then also, I've just seen a couple of reports that Mike Malone had stated that he might alternate starts between Plumlee and Lyles. It didn't specify if he meant based on matchup or just if he's randomly playing them every other game. But either way, I think that would be Lyles tonight, whether it's matchup or just alternating. So yeah, I mean, I'm leaning towards Lyles, especially because we have Plumlee projected for higher ownership last I looked. So I'll gladly take the lower owned guy who I think is very likely to start in Lyles. I think he's one of the best value plays on the slate.
Yeah, play the starter, in my opinion. Whoever starts, I'd play. That's where I'm at here. I don't know about you, but whoever starts is the guy that I'm plugging into my lineups because I can't trust the minutes off the bench, and you don't have one of them that's way cheaper than the other. If you did, it'd be different, but they're both basically the same price on DraftKings. So if Trey Lyles starts, we do expect him to, and we might not get that news. So another thing to consider, if you can play Lyles at small forward or forward or utility, I would do that opposed to starting him on DraftKings at small forward. Because if you start him at small forward and Plumlee is starting, you can't do that swap. Anywhere else you can, outside, anywhere else you can. Or if you have Plumlee in your lineup, don't do it at center. Do it at power forward, or utility, because then you can make that 1-for-1 swap. And of course, give yourself an extra $100 if you're starting with Plumlee and maybe moving to Lyles. That's pretty important. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Anything else for Denver here? I mean, I mentioned Jokic. I think he's a pretty good play, but what do you have?
I like Jokic a lot. The minutes have actually been up since Millsap went out as well, which certainly doesn't hurt. But he's actually had a lot of success, or at least a very high ceiling in this spot in the past. He's had a few games where he just absolutely has torched Steven Adams.
Yeah.
So
played OKC earlier this year and was in foul trouble, and they blew him out, by the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, not that matters a ton for me, but it's just worth pointing out. But also, I think that if you're looking for a really cheap punt at no ownership, especially on FanDuel, I think Torrey Craig plays like 36 minutes here. Who knows how productive they're going to be. But with Paul George and Russell Westbrook on the floor for Oklahoma City and playing huge minutes, Torrey Craig's really the best defensive guy that Denver has to deal with either one of them. And I expect him to play huge minutes. He played 36 against Oklahoma City last time. He's played big minutes where he doesn't get in foul trouble in games against, really ball dominant stars before. So I think Torrey Craig plays a ton of minutes here at no ownership and a really cheap price tag.
All right. What about OKC? Where are you at on Westbrook?
I like Westbrook. I like George, both quite a bit. I think whichever one does not draw Torrey Craig is just going to probably light this defense up, because without Millsap out there, it just makes a big difference as far as, whether it's Plumlee or Lyles, it's weakening their front court defensively. If you have Torrey Craig dealing with Russell Westbrook, I think Paul George just goes nuts. So alternating those guys in tournaments, I think, is a pretty solid strategy.
I'm not sleeping on Schroeder either. I still think he's too cheap. You're talking about he's still, even since Westbrook returned to the lineup on November 19th, Schroeder still has a 26.6% usage rate. He's still producing north of a fantasy point per minute. He's still playing 30 plus minutes in close games. So I have no problem with Schroeder in this spot. Yeah, his assist rate takes a hit, but everything else, Schroeder's looked pretty fine. And he's played 10 games since Westbrook returned. He has totals of 41, 31, 36, 32, 30, 40, and 34. So it's not like he has not been producing with Westbrook. And he's still playing plenty of minutes without him and plenty of minutes with him, meaning that he's getting the run. You want to move on?
Yep.
All right. Toronto and Portland. I don't want to spend too much time on the injuries here. We really don't know. So just give me an idea of what you think is going to happen. And then the Live Before Lock crew coming up next will hopefully get something, maybe get some news. I don't know. Eddie and Chris are coming up next. They're going to bring you up till 7 p.m. lock. Let's hope. Other than that, we're just going to have to wait and set some contingency plans.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I'm blindly guessing here, but my guess, just if I have to take one, is that Kawhi plays and Lowry sits. We've kind of seen that happen before with Toronto, even going back to last season. Obviously, a different coach, but when they had DeRozan and Lowry, you would see it sometimes. But here, we got word that Kawhi was at shoot around. Did not specifically say what he was doing at shoot around, but he was present. And then right around that same time, we got news that Kyle Lowry was questionable. So if I have to guess, and especially factoring in the edge you can get in tournaments if you guess correctly, I'm leaning towards Kawhi in and Lowry out. But, again, I have no idea. The one thing that I do feel confident about is that I really like Serge Ibaka with Valanciunas sidelined. I think that you should get 32 to 34 minutes from him. If Kawhi is out or Lowry is out, it's more productive minutes. But either way, I think it's a really good play. If Leonard sits, Siakam's really good. If Leonard's in, Siakam becomes a little bit worse.
All right. Yeah. If Leonard's in, I'm not playing Siakam. If he's out, I have quite a bit of interest in Siakam. Joe Val is out. I don't really think that makes a huge difference, though.
I think it solidifies it by going out there and playing 22 minutes or something.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't see him playing a lot more minutes, but I think you're right. In terms of his minutes floor, it helps him. Yeah, that makes sense. Fred VanVleet could end up being a really good player or just a decent player, not in play at all. If Lowry and Leonard both sit, VanVleet would be a really good play. I mean, a really good play. Probably the best point per dollar play on the slate. If just one of them sits, then he's in play. If both of them play, I want nothing to do with him.
Yeah, that's about right.
All right. What do you add on What do you have on Portland? I mean, Nurkic is like ridiculously cheap, but it's not a great matchup. And then you mentioned Lillard as well being cheap on DraftKings.
Yeah. Really site dependent on this one. This is actually one of my favorite games on DraftKings because I think that it goes overlooked compared to the Golden State game, but the price tags are more appealing in this one. Dame Lillard's $8,500, CJ McCollum 7,100. I love the price on Lillard. I think it's fine on McCollum. One thing I pointed out in Slack chat earlier is Portland actually staggered Lillard and McCollum's minutes last game, which does increase their ceiling if that continues to happen. So just worth keeping in mind. And then also Yusuf Nurkic at 6,700 on DraftKings is a really easy play. I think he hasn't been shot off the floor by stretch fives, so I'm not concerned about that either. I have him in for his normal 30 to 32 minutes, assuming this game stays competitive.
All right, so here we go. Last one, Sacramento, Golden State. I pointed out earlier, and I'll keep it short here, let you close it out. Curry on FanDuel is way too cheap. I even like him on DraftKings at 10-2. So that goes to show you what interest I have in him. I think 10K on FanDuel is also too cheap for Durant. I'll throw this over to you. You'll close it out. Live Before Lock coming up next. And I just want to ask you guys watching, if you enjoy the show, you appreciate the content, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It really helps us a lot, whether you're entering the contest or not to win. It does us a lot of good and helps us out, and we appreciate it. So thank you. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I agree with you. Steph on FanDuel, way too cheap. Him and Durant are both fine on DraftKings as well. But on DraftKings, Clay and Draymond are the two priorities for me. Their price tags are just both insane. On FanDuel, also, you have, I think, 6,800 Draymond, which is too cheap, especially as you pointed out, power forward isn't very good. 6,800 for Clay is a solid price tag on FanDuel as well. So I do like Clay and Draymond quite a bit. On the Sacramento side, though, it's hard for me to really prioritize anyone because all these guys are kind of coming down in their minutes as this team gets fully healthy, and you have Bogdanovich playing more minutes. You have Costa Koufis for God knows what reason taking minutes at the 5 away from Bagley to where it takes a couple minutes from Cauley Stein, and it just becomes a mess. So outside of game stacks, I don't really like these Sacramento guys as standalone plays.
I'm with you. I thought I did, but once you get deeper into it, there's really not much there. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks as always for tuning in. We love you guys. We hope you have a great night. We'll see you back here on Monday. Stick around. Live Before Lock, Chris and Eddie coming up next. Have a great night and a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. All right, later, boys.